we are still under United States command concerning China. And, one example is that on late March, European Parliament adopted a resolution concerning rearmament of Europe, and there were many articles dedicated to China. And they said that China is endangering security situation of Europe.
Hello everybody, this is Pascal from Neutrality Studies, and today I'm talking to Dr. Uroš Lipuscek, a Slovenian colleague and professor at the Mediterranean University. He's the former director of AAB University, a correspondent and editor for Slovenia's RTV, and he also used to work as a consultant of the OSCE Mission in Kosovo. Dr. Lipuscek has been working all over the world and is intimately connected to the Global South. So the rise of BRICS and the new multipolar order is what we want to discuss today. Dr. Lipušček, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you very much for accepting. You've been recently actually in China, and we will talk about this in just a second. But, today we're recording this video on Friday, June 13th, and we just learned about the horrible attack of Israel against Iran, targeting Tehran, targeting private housing complexes, targeting also the nuclear facility in Natanz. And I think we have to start with this because you also have a little bit of experience working with Iran. What is your assessment of the situation?
It could be a much bigger war, the beginning of the much bigger war in the Middle East. But I was not surprised about that news because I think that Netanyahu was trying to prevent United States President Trump to make an agreement with Iran concerning this problem, because Trump yesterday said that they are good, that they will make a good agreement. And I think that Israel trying to prevent at all costs this, and now we are risking a severe war because, Russia has security agreement with Iran. What will be their reaction, we don't know. Then there is a third partner, that is China. China also, it's importing around 1/3 of the oil from Iran, and it could be very hard for them to be without this oil. That's mean now and there is the United States on the other hand supporting Iran, and I think the aim of Netanyahu is to involve United States in that battle, and it could be severe crisis within all biggest world power.
Do you think that the Europeans will react towards this act of war? This is an act of war, is an act of aggression by Israel against Iran. Do you think the Europeans will react the way they reacted with when Russia invaded Ukraine and put any kind of sanctions on Israel?
I hope not, but I think that Great Britain will support United States, whatever they will decide in Washington. But the other European states, I think they will hesitate to join. You know why? I am encouraged by the fact that all the European powers, they supported a resolution in the Security Council a week ago, which asked Israel to stop intervention and allow humanitarian aid. And this, because this was vetoed by United States, then General Assembly adopted a resolution in this, and only one country from Europe was against, that was Hungary. And I think that the pressure of the public opinion of governments is increasing also in Europe, and I think that they cannot support anymore Israel. I think that that this is a changing situation.
My interpretation is that Israel is actively trying to create a counter-reaction from Iran and wants to invite, of course, military strikes against itself in order to gain back the narrative control also in
Yes.
Europe. Do you also think that the desperation of Israel is part of what caused this attack?
Yes, I think that they are trying with this attack, they are trying to provoke Iran, because Iran, he has, I don't know, 1,000 or 2,000 missiles. They can destroy literally the Tel Aviv or something like that. And this could be a reason that Israel will try to get back solidarity from European countries, on United States also. But because in the European theater, the public mood is changing. Now that's for first time the European governments are hesitating, supporting Israel aggression. Also, our country, small country Slovenia, which is a member of European Security Council, was encouraged now to be a coordinator of the action of the latest resolution. That's even the smallest European countries are starting to be more principle against that horrible things what the Israel is doing in Gaza, especially in Gaza and the genocide.
You've been working also in Kosovo. You've been working with a lot of global South countries. What is your view on how, let's say even places like Serbia of the former Yugoslavia are like currently looking at what is happening in Gaza and what is happening also in the war between Russia and Ukraine? Are the former Yugoslav republics kind of also in the European theater a kind of in-between space with the different interpretations of what is happening, as we see with Serbia being like staunchly neutral, but Croatia and Slovenia having different policies? Can you give us a little bit of insights there?
Yes, I think they are divided. On one hand, Slovenia and Croatia, they are pro-European. They are doing whatever they have to do and what they order them in Brussels. That's unfortunately the situation. But on the other hand, then you have Serbia, which is a special case. Serbia is on one, President Vučić, he's trying to sit on both seats, to be pro-Russian and to be pro-European. He would like that Serbia would be admitted to European Union. Therefore, he attended the 80th anniversary of the Second World War in Moscow, but yesterday he paid a visit to Kiev. He was in Ukraine, and then on the other hand, also he is selling weapons and ammunition also to Ukraine, and also he is exporting weapons also to Israel. That's a kind of different situation in the Balkans. But I think what the present aggression of Israel is concerned, I think that all of the Balkan countries will be against. Much depend on the European Union reaction, but I think that mood of the public is changing, and I think that Israel cannot get any kind of support anymore here. Even in Germany, the mood is changing, which is very important, because Germany, it is the most important country, and especially with the new chancellor, he was forced, by the opposition parties, to react against the aggression. What will be very what should we see is what will be the reaction to this to the president of German General Assembly of the United Nations. She is a German foreign minister, Annabel Warbock. She was the most pro-Israeli politician in Europe, perhaps. And I don't know how she will react now, but I don't think that she could have any kind of influence of the public opinion in Europe and also in Germany.
What surprised me is today, when it comes to the attacks on Iran, is that the United States, Mr. Rubio, the foreign secretary, he actually said that the United States had no hand in these attacks, and he said that he warned Israel not to target U.S. forces or U.S. interest. He actually didn't say that Iran must not strike against Israel. He didn't say that. He said, don't strike against the United States. Is this also a change in the way that the US is signaling right now its support, or is this, just smoke and mirrors at the moment?
It's a small change, but, my impression is if the President Trump, in his last telephone conversation with Netanyahu, if he would insist that Israel would not attack, because, President Trump has all the weapons and cards in his hands. If he will stop supplying Israel with weapons, the Israel cannot do anything, therefore, I think that Americans are playing on both sides. And, unfortunately, they are under heavy influence of the Israeli lobby, and that I think that's the reason that they are. And what is also important? They didn't say that they will defend Israel. No, they didn't say. This could be a pressure to Netanyahu not to go on with war, because he said that this is just the first attack and that there will be several attacks. And maybe this could be a pressure to Netanyahu not to go on with these attacks.
Yes, and it might also be a way for the United States not having to immediately use military power against Iran should Iran choose to retaliate, right? Depending on how it retaliates.
Yeah.
But we also know that Russia plays an important part in this. And Russia just a couple of days ago officially also said and agreed, we will try to help the United States mediating some form of nuclear agreement with Iran.
Yes.
And you already said Iran and Russia, of course, have security agreements. How do you think that actually the Ukrainian and Russian war and the fact that the US would like to bring that one to a close as well, how will that play into the conflagration in the Middle East now?
I think that this war, what has happened now in Middle East or in Iran, is the war is not in interest of a Trump administration and United States. First, he has a lot of internal problems. And second, it could be a much wider war. And this is also not is against him. Why? This is a problem also because Iran said that if it will be attacked by Israel, they will destroy oil fields in the several surrounding countries, also in Saudi Arabia. If this will happen, that this could be at the beginning of a recession or even, I don't know, a depression of the world economy. And United States is not in a situation, not to react. I think that the United States will try to force Israel not to go on, because it could be too severe crisis, not only in the Middle East, but all over the world. And also it could complicate although the situation with the other big powers, because now the Americans would try to get some kind of a conciliation with Chinese, and also this will have effect also on the war in Ukraine. We don't know. I'm sure Russians, by my opinion, they will not react, or they will not go with the army to help Iranians. I hope so. If this happens, that could American will be forced in, and that could be a war between United States and Russia, and a world war.
I also don't think that it will go to that level, but the Russian, military hardware is certainly being transferred, has already been transferred, and will be further transferred, right? And the question is, will the crisis be contained on what it is, or will it become an all-out war that includes actually United States personnel or not? But maybe let's shift a little bit to a discussion about China, because you recently visited China and you were there for several, not only weeks, but months, because you were teaching there. And you told me that what you experienced, it makes you actually quite hopeful. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
I was a correspondent from China almost 9 years, and I left China with one of the last planes before that COVID epidemic started, and I went for 3 weeks vacation, and I stay here for 5 years, and after 5 years I was back in China, and I must tell you that it is a completely changed country. That is, they have a will. The country is developing so fast. It's becoming, technological power of first rate. Much more developed in this case, like even European states. And I visited, for example, a fair in Ningbo, which was dedicated to Central and Eastern European countries. And I was thinking what the European countries can export to China. Nothing. You know what they're exporting? Wine, food, cheese, and that kind of stuff, because China is becoming first-rate technological power. And I think the only solution for European countries is this kind of a win-win situation, as President Xi Jinping is saying, for trade, that we should start cooperate with China full force. And first and second, Chinese are now very optimistic mood, and this is a sign of any country which is in upwing is very optimistic. But if a country is going down, then it is becoming very aggressive, and that is the case of, for example, for United States of America, because I was before living many years in the United States, and now I was living in China. I can compare this, and China is a full optimistic swing, and United States in a full pessimistic swing. This is the best, my impression, what I got in China. And also, the Chinese are not interfering in foreign affairs of other countries. This is very important. Chinese aim is to get good relations with everybody, to make trade, to make friends, and to build, infrastructure all over the world and so on. America, on one hand, is also exporting weapons and crisis, and armies, and China is doing, Belt and Road, trains and infrastructure. And this is the big difference. And I think that China, what impressed me also was that it was the first time now that China got in a public opinion polls, which was conducted in Europe, much concerning soft power, much more weight than United States. This was the first time. That means the people are seeing China in more positive way than United States.
This is indeed like a huge change, but I think the pictures that are coming out of China, also on social media, the way that we are now seeing that China has Chinese people have a very good life, and China is absolutely a trustable partner in international relations, much more so than the United States, which levies all of these tariffs against foe and friends alike, and it's acting erratically, not just since the Trump administration, but Biden and so on, the previous administration. True, you cannot count on the United States, right? They make an agreement one day, they break it the other day. And that's not just since Donald Trump the case. That has been the case also before. And China, in this sense, is now looks much less heavy-handed, doesn't it, in international relations? The question to me is if the Europeans, who are still following the United States in much of the anti-China rhetoric, whether that will change also on the political level.
I hope so, because, we are still under United States command concerning China. And, one example is that on late March, European Parliament adopted a resolution concerning rearmament of Europe, and there were many articles dedicated to China. And they said that China is endangering security situation of Europe. That China is against prevailing international order based on the rules and so on, and that China is together with Russia, Belarus, I don't know, North Korea and Iran, the most dangerous countries which are in dangerous world peace and so on. And Chinese, they were very dissatisfied with this resolution. And, this is one part of the story. Second is that now even European Commission, which was not very much in favor of good relations with China because they were under American domination. Now they're starting changing the situation, and in July or not in the mid-June, the highest delegation of European Union will come to Beijing to start discussion of cooperation, because I think the only way for Europe to further develop our way of life and our standard is to start cooperation with China. One problem is, yes, I have to admit, what could we export as Europe to China? Because we didn't invest enough. The Chinese are now dedicating to the development and to research and to education between 5 and 10%. Depend on the region. But Europe, 3%, that's a big difference. Therefore, we cannot catch anymore. And it will be, what I think, it will be a very big shock in Europe, civilizational shock, when we realize that now Chinese are buying our bankrupt companies in Europe and starting production with their own technology, which is not anymore European. Now, before we were guarding our technology in China, not to be stolen. Now it will becoming reverse situation. The Chinese is starting to guard their own technology here in Europe. It could be a completely different situation. That I think is civilizational shock for us.
Yeah, but this is where it has to go, because China is now one of the most developed nations on Earth, when it comes to high technology. Really, the only ones who in certain sectors can still match them or outmatch them is the United States. And there's of course certain sectors in which others have competitive advantages. Like when we look at microchip production, the technology for the highest of the high chips is still kind of jealously guarded by the Japanese and the Dutch, right? The lithography machines. But overall, on the scale where a civilization can actually produce cars and planes and trains and steel and iron and so on, China has it all. And China now proved also that it actually holds the Europeans and the Americans where it hurts with these rare earths, right?
Yes.
And I think this came quite as a shock, especially to the United States, that their technology and their military gear is so vulnerable to a monopoly that China has.
Yes, and I think that we have to be concentrated not only on China, but on India and our other BRICS countries. because China is the most important. And I think that future of Europe is not to be concentrated only to export to United States and be dependent United States all the time, but to enlarge this and become part of bigger scale, bigger picture, and that is BRICS. I think BRICS is the future of the world, and we have to join this. And I think that's the last time, the last moment that Europe should change its own mind. But unfortunately, I am not very optimistic concerning this, because our leaders in Europe, they are thinking only about armament, about weapons, about how to military defeat Russia and so on. And this is not a good sign. I think that we in Europe, we need new kind of leaders, which will have that kind of vision that, for example, Brandt Kohl had. Now we have just the reverse. They are just people which are dedicated to militarism, and this is, I think, if this will go on, we will have a new war in Europe, and this will be the end of the European, I think, not civilization, but of the permanent position in the world.
But do you think that this war drive can go on? I mean, I'm very worried about that too. But we are seeing that the European Union has fractures, right? Hungary is not on board when it comes to the way the EU wants to approach Russia, even though they keep okaying the sanction packages. We also have Slovakia that has a different perception of what should be done. And we're seeing fractures also in other European states. We now see fractures also when it comes to Israel and Gaza, right? With Spain and Ireland having gone like different ways from the rest from a very early point. And the unity of the European Union, to me, actually seems to be eroding. Or how do you view this?
I think that's eroding. Yeah, even Italy, they are saying openly, we will not send soldiers, to Ukraine in any form, and I think that it is cracks. But now only Hungary and Ukraine is not enough. I think that something positive has changed at the first in the biggest European countries. I think the first in this line is France. French president is, what should I say, joke. One day he's saying something, another day saying quite opposite. And I think that it should be different situation in France and also in Germany. And the problem is in Europe is that the conservative parties are more or less dedicated to peace, in Ukraine, to end the war, but the old classical liberal parties which are now in power in Europe are for the war with Russia. This is some kind of contradiction, and I don't know what will happen. I think that in Europe we will have a terrible situation, and we cannot allow also what I see, rearmament of Germany. This is what is going to Germany is very dangerous. It is now for the third time in the history on the last 100 years that Germany is arming again, and German and Chancellor, he said that Germany will have the most strongest army in Europe. This is very dangerous. Some of the politicians in Germany are dreaming also about atomic weapons, and after now what will happen in Iran, it could also influence if the Germans will decide to get atomic weapons, maybe also Koreans and other countries in the world, because now it becomes very clear that if you possess atomic weapons, nobody can attack you, nobody can deter you, and this could be also changing situation in Europe. I don't know how we could force the European leaders to change the situation. You know why? And their attitude toward armament, because the peace movement in Europe is very weak. That's the problem. Also in the United States. And I think that something terrible has happened, that European people will now understand that we have completely change the situation, and that our future is not in the armament, because 2 times in our history it was terrible situation because of the armament, and I hope the 3rd time we will not this repeat for the 3rd time.
I hope so too, but the unfortunate what we are also seeing in the European Union is an increased drive toward also authoritarian tendencies within the countries that claim to be defending democracy,
Yes.
right? We are seeing how the Germans are thinking about outlawing their largest opposition party, the AfD. We saw that in Romania we had a highly problematic election of a president where the front runner just got outrightly banned for like very flimsy reasons, and this was highly problematic. And I had a discussion also with colleagues from Poland who say like, look, in Poland too, the current government is cracking down on political dissent. We see Kaja Kallas, the foreign policy chief, who now included 2 German journalists residing in Russia, but 2 German journalists, German nationals, into the sanctions package. This is scary developments.
But you know what's my opinion? If the European Union will become an autocratic organization, I think this will be the beginning of the end of Europe. And which is also very dangerous is that on the last resolution which was adopted by European Parliament, there was an article saying that European Union should switch from consensus to qualified majority. This is very dangerous, especially for small countries, because now we will have maybe 1 or 3 leading European countries deciding the fate of European Union, and we all the other, the small states, we will be just an observers, you know. And this is a trend which is now favored by the biggest countries, and also by a majority in the European Commission, especially the president of the European Commission. I think we have to prevent this. You know, European Union was started as a economic project, peaceful project, and now we are becoming almost a half NATO organization, and this could be very dangerous. And also we cannot allow that we will becoming only observers, and that only Germany and maybe France and maybe the 3rd country will decide the future of European Union. If this will happen, I think it's the end of European Union.
So your own country, Slovenia, what has been your experience being a small and new member of the European Union?
So far, you know, we were the best pupils. Our politicians, they were doing whatever they were ordered by the Brussels. And also we don't, our public is split. The conservative and the right-wing parties, they're completely supporting Brussels Commission. The liberal parties are also, you know, we do not have politicians with a long-term vision what can happen. And you know, to be small, it could be also not good, you know, because you don't have enough power to press something. Also, if you know what has happened, our president said in the European Parliament she was the first politician of the highest rank in Europe which she used genocide for what has going on in Gaza. Nobody of the other highest politician in Europe still didn't use this word, but she said, you know, that this was genocide, and what's going on. No reaction. If, for example, a German chancellor will say in the European Parliament that this is a genocide, I think there will be complete revision of the European politics. Therefore, we as small countries, we don't have enough influence. And I think my opinion is that what is the gravest mistake of our diplomacy is that we do not make some of coalition of some small and middle-sized European countries to be united. Because now what the Germans said, that's law. And for example, French or maybe Italians, but the others, we are just watching. And I think that we have to make a new coalition, small parties, that we will have stronger voice, because we cannot agree that consensus will be taken away from us.
Yeah, because the promise is that it is a democratic club, right? And everybody has
Yeah.
the same rights. But as Everest Bartolo, the former foreign minister of Malta, once explained to me, the European Union is like an old train with 3 classes. And
Yes.
and depending on the size, you sit in the first, second, or third one, and most states sit in the third one. But what's the attraction still for Slovenia? I don't think anyone in Slovenia thinks about an exiting the European Union, right? There's still an overall benefit. But if you compare the benefit today to the benefit like when Slovenia joined, is it still the same calculation, or did this change?
Yes. I think that for us, the existence of European Union is sine qua non condition. European Union bring a lot of very positive ways and economic development and so on in Europe. And for us, it is essential that European Union will remain as democratic and prosperous organization. But on the other hand, if the European Union will disappear, it will disintegrate, then could be the beginning of the new war era in Europe. And we will not be attacked by the Russia. Sorry, we could be attacked by surrounding countries, because Slovenia, we had an unfortunate history that we were, during our history, especially in the Second World War and even before, we were divided by different neighboring countries, and this could happen again. Therefore, for us, it is essentially that European Union will stay, and it will be a prosperous and strong organization. And therefore, that trend which is going now in Europe, that only the biggest will decide the fate of whole European Union, is very dangerous.
In theory, the European Union has a great potential still also to ameliorate conflicts. The way that the Northern Irish question basically went away when the UK and Ireland both were part of the European Union. It just went away. In theory, if Serbia and Kosovo joined the European Union, that problem would also basically be ameliorated. You could Europeanize these conflicts.
Yeah.
But in practice, this seems to be very far away, isn't it?
Yeah, if European Union would disappear, I hope not, there will be a beginning of the new small crisis. All the past problems will emerge again. And also concerning the Balkans, the Balkans are very unstable. And I am afraid of that if and when the war in Ukraine will be ended, will be finished, the new crisis will appear in the Balkans, because the Balkans are becoming very unstable. You know why? For example, why on earth the British government decide to sign an arms agreement with Bosnia and Herzegovina? Why do they need? My opinion is in order to interfere in European affairs with, I don't know, MI6 or I don't know what kind of forces. Second, for example, Croatia signed a military agreement on cooperation with Kosovo, Albania, and Bulgaria. What on earth do we need that kind of cooperation on military side? And then on the other side, on the opposite side, Serbia signed an agreement, military agreement with Hungary. That means this is strange. Instead, that that the cooperation would be stronger in European Union now we are put in the Balkans, we are putting more emphasis on the military cooperation. That means that everybody is preparing, I don't know, for a war. This is not good situation. And if you are looking what is going on, Serbia is surrounding by all military surrounding by European countries, by NATO countries. And what is the problem with Serbia is also, I think that what's going on in Serbia is, on the other hand, the people are fed up with corruption and inefficiency of the government. But on the other hand, I think the situation is not very clear. It could be also that the demonstrations are some kind of color revolution, which was interfered by some foreign countries. This could, therefore, I am really afraid of that. Could be now. The Balkan was powder keg, in the history, and this could be repeated again. And I hope that the European Commission you should show much more emphasis to the Balkans, and they should encourage to speed the process of European countries, these Balkan countries, to become members of European Union as soon as possible, because this is the only way that we will have a peace situation, and that we will not have foreign interference, because we have to admit that in the Balkan area now there are fightings between, let me say, secret services of foreign powers, especially big powers. Russian, American, British, Germans, they're all fighting who will have the most influence on the Balkan countries.
I wasn't aware that there are security agreements being made with different Balkan countries by outside forces in the EU and not in the EU. That's actually news to me, but you're absolutely right. Why would the United Kingdom have military agreements with Bosnia and Herzegovina? And this is very reminiscent to me to the build up the decades before the First World War, which then ultimately started in the Balkans. I mean, the European history, the history of the Balkans is the history of Europe. It's always a linchpin of what happens politically in other places. Are there other such military agreements being struck at the moment? I mean, is there any military agreements between Russia and Serbia or something the like happening?
No. Russians are, they're pro-Serbian, and I think the fighting is, will Serbia remain on the Russian orbit or in European or American orbit? This is because also what has happened in the past was that when the Kosovo became independent country, that was secession, and the Kosovo become member, independent country, without any kind of referendum and something like that. But for example, Crimea in Russia or in Ukraine, whatever, they had a referendum, and the West is not admitting that Crimea is part of Russia. Even they had a referendum and so on. But Kosovo is becoming independent country with any kind of referendum. They just decide to secede, that Kosovo will become independent country, and that was decision especially by United States.
Yeah, this is the hypocrisy, right? And this hypocrisy is what is being observed and being understood right now by a large part of the world, except for the Europeans. But South America, African countries, Asian countries, they all look at this and they actually see the inconsistencies in which the inconsistent way in which the Europeans are acting. Do you think that though, outside forces like China and like ASEAN might in the future help with just better ideas, the way that the Chinese had actually, they gave an idea to how to end the war between Russia and Ukraine, right? They gave a 10-point framework plan none of them picked it up, but it was well received actually in Moscow and Ukraine. Both of them said thank you to China. Do you have any hope in other states from the BRICS to maybe help us Europeans to get along a little bit better on our own continent?
I hope so, but also BRICS, Chinese, they have this Confucius ideology of harmony, this is good. But on the other hand, they have problems with India and China, and the BRICS are not, they cannot react now. First, they have settled all the problems, internal problems they have that they can influence positively on the other countries. But especially China, China has in Europe, his group 16 plus 1. This is a Chinese group of Central and Eastern European countries which make special agreement concerning cooperation with China, and this is going very well, but European Commission was not very encouraged by this groupings, because they said that China is interfering in the national affairs of European countries. But in what kind? For example, Chinese are building infrastructure in Serbia, in Croatia, and some on this part. And I think that European Union should also encourage this kind of cooperation, because it helps all these countries to be more developed. Because I think that if Brussels is not paying enough attention to the least developed part of the European Union, and this is especially the south of the Balkans. There are big differences, and China is helping. And therefore, China is becoming very popular, more and more popular, because it's seen they're building infrastructure, this is not only in the Balkans, but all over the world. Chinese has also, they are accused for neo-imperialism, why? Because if the countries are, if they are building, for example, in Sri Lanka, a port, they got a lot of loans, and they could not repay. This could be a problem. But this is not a problem only for China. This is a problem also for these governments. Why? Because I think the Chinese, that's a problem. The maturity of the loans should be not 10 years, but 20 or 30 years for the least developed countries. That's the problem. Otherwise, what the Chinese are doing is very positive. For example, now in a few years, they will finish Trans-African Railway, without official pronunciation.
Yeah, the way that China is actually doing this foreign direct investments, and official development aid,
Yes.
both of them are actually geared toward helping other states with their infrastructure. And the debt trap accusation is by the West toward China is just laughable, because that's how Western countries for the longest time, through the IMF and the World Bank, were and are still exerting extreme power on developing states, and making sure that they get enough money that they become dependent, but not enough to pay to pay back, right? But maybe as a last point, what is your prediction for the BRICS countries, and how the existence of BRICS will change the way that the Europeans act on this, shared Eurasian continent?
I think that this is some kind of a new alignment movement. I think this is a future, because they are very peaceful, and they're trying to develop all the world, and they're paying a lot of attention to the least developed countries. For example, China was the first to eradicate the least, the most poorer regions what they had, and the same recipe they are following in the other countries, especially Africa is in the line, especially for the BRICS countries. They have some internal problems, but I think that there will be a new system, and I think that BRICS will in I don't know 5-10 years they will have their own system. But now it depends if there will be a common new world order, which with the West and the BRICS together, or if the Americans will not admit that they have to change their attitude, then there will be two world orders: one, the Western world order, and a BRICS world order. But BRICS will be much stronger because West is consisted only of 10% of the or 11% of world population. And the rest is BRICS, and BRICS their GDP is going on and on. And I think the West will be forced to start cooperation with China and with BRICS, especially because that these countries are not now they are becoming now technologically very advanced. In some cases, even more advanced than the Western countries. And I think now we in the West, we are on the losing side. And if our politicians will not realize that we have to join them, then that's the end, I think, of any kind of influence of Europe in the international relations.
I see it like you. Yes, until and unless more cooperation and ultimately joining of BRICS happens by European states, Europe will be left behind, and be the backwards water of the world. But Uroš Lipuscek, people who want to find your writing, where should they go? Where should they find you?
I am on, I am only on Facebook. I'm a regular contributor on Facebook because I am a pro peace. I am against war. I am against the European Commission and these autocratic tendencies. Our country is so small, and I think that some leading parties, they prevent me to appear anymore in the national-wide media because I am not in line with the official politics, as you understand what I said. I am quite critical. We were calling all the time from the beginning that we should start talk with Russia to end the war in Ukraine and so on, and the people and the leading politicians, they were favoring the line of Brussels to end to go the war as long as possible, as long as necessary toward Russia. Therefore, I am in some kind and some part of the political establishment in Slovenia, persona non grata.
A lot of us are, but I will include the link to your Facebook profile in the description of this video so people can reach out to you. And Uroš Lipuscek, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much.